for it.
Well, good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning and talk a little about heat and light in an emergency. And I'm Brad Sanford of the 28th Ward. And if you have any questions during our conversation today, please jump in and ask. I'm happy to answer any questions. And my contact information is an LDS tool, so you're welcome to text or email me if you have any questions. I do want to offer a disclaimer that I am by no means an expert in this topic, but I think that's okay because I think most of our stake and ward members are not experts. But with a little bit of research and effort, you can find out quite a bit of information about this topic, and hopefully what we talk about today will be useful as you consider what the needs are for your family and your wards. As Chad has mentioned, this will be out on whyprepare.com, and so I invite you to go out there if you'd like afterwards or share it with members of your ward. So today we're going to talk about, just briefly, some common and typical emergencies that we may come across in our area. We'll talk about, obviously, heat and light, and then I'll mention some resources that you can look to get additional information. And then at the end, we'll have just a few action items to think about as you consider your preparedness with heat and light. So for a minute, I just wanted to talk about what are some common situations that we may encounter in our area. And obviously, every area is a little bit different. If we were in Hawaii right now, we might be worried about a volcano. Or if we were in Chile, they have earthquakes all the time. But in any event, these are pretty common things that we see where we lose power. We may have winter storms that knock out certain things. From time to time, water may be shut off for construction. Maybe there's contamination. And you could be stranded at work or in your vehicle for some reason. And then things that may not happen quite as much around here, but they do certainly happen from time to time: earthquake, fire, and flood. And the reason I mention these is these are just kind of things to think about. And then in many of these situations, heat and light can be the first things that we may be without. And they're just so common every day. We just walk into a room and turn on lights, and it was cold this morning, and probably our furnaces have kicked on. And so we really depend on light and heat, and I think I take it for granted quite a bit. And so preparing this topic today is actually really helpful to remind me of how important these two things are and what I can do in my family to be a little more prepared. So because again, I'm not an expert at this, I've looked for a variety of other resources, and in addition to our stake's website, there's a Pleasant Grove stake, the Mount Mahogany stake, where I recently moved from, and they have a program kind of similar to ours where they have a number of videos, and Michelle Jorgensen is their stake preparedness person, and they have a, kind of similar to us, they have a website and a YouTube channel. And what I'm going to do is show you two sections from a video that was put together on light and heat in their stake, and then kind of recap some of the things that she mentioned in her presentation, and then go from there. So let me go ahead and flip to their website and YouTube channel, and then we can watch that. So, just need to get out of. So just briefly, this is their website that they have, and their YouTube channel with a number of different videos that you can see down here. For example, if you want to know more detail about heat and fuel, you can go on this little video here and see what she's put together. But this one in particular is light and heat, so we'll see if we can get this going, and hopefully y'all can hear it.
Michelle Jorgensen, and this is the Mount Mahogany Stake Self-Reliance video. Today we're going to be talking about light and heat, which is kind of funny since it's June and we're in the middle of the summer. We're probably not worried about heat right now. But in an emergency, light and heat would be the two first things that you would actually be thinking about. We did a Pioneer weekend once, and it was really fun. We turned off all the electricity in our house, everything. And what I was noticing at first was how quiet it was. There are a lot of things humming and buzzing in our houses all the time. But then the other thing we noticed is how dark it was. And how we relied on, we'd walk into a room and we'd flip the switch. Even though we knew that it wasn't on, we didn't know it wasn't on. Our bodies were so used to just flipping the switch. So we are so accustomed to just having light all the time in our houses that it would be really an interesting change for us to have no light. And we were really going to have to learn how to do things differently. So let's talk about those two things, light and heat. And on the opposite end of heat is actually how to keep cool, how to keep not too hot. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. All right. Oftentimes when we're talking about light and heat, we're talking about open flames. Because if we don't have electricity, we need some way to heat or light without the electricity. So we're talking about open flame. There are 3 rules that are so important about open flames. The first is to never leave it unattended, especially if you have children. There have been so many accidents, so many tragic things have happened from unattended candles, even in today's world where we don't have to depend on them. Just candles that we leave out for smelling or whatever it is. And little kids have gotten burned or houses have been burned down because of those things. So never leave an open flame unattended. The second thing is if you feel like you might be falling asleep, I always fall asleep while I'm reading at night. If you feel like you're going to fall asleep, don't leave that candle. Blow it out, use a flashlight, something like that. And then the third is, this is the interesting one that a lot of people don't think about. Flames consume air. So if you have an open flame in your home, it needs a source of air. Now our homes, we've worked very hard to make them very airtight, right? That's how we insulate things. That's how we keep ourselves warm in the winter, cool in the summer, is by insulating the outside air. So because of that, we don't have drafty walls and drafty windows and drafty ceilings like pioneers did. We don't have oxygen to feed that flame. So what it does is it consumes all the air that we need. So you must be very careful if you have an open flame in your home that you must crack a window or 2 and make sure that there's enough oxygen coming in, or otherwise you will die from that deadly thing called carbon monoxide poisoning, and you will not know it. But your neighbors will find you dead the next morning. So make sure if you have any open flame that you are leaving a window cracked so that it will feed the flame, because the flame needs oxygen to continue to burn. You've probably heard about the injuries of women in pioneer days, that there were a lot of injuries from their long skirts getting caught in the flames of their cooking fires. So we are so unaccustomed to fires, except for Boy Scouts and them almost dying at those Boy Scout camps. I was always terrified to send my boys. I never knew it was going to happen on those campouts. So other than Boy Scouts almost dying, we've never had probably real up-close personal experiences with flames. So if this is something we're having to do, we need to be very cautious about it. Let's talk about a heat source first of all. If you have an older home, you may be fortunate to have a wood fireplace in your home, which is wonderful. Of course, I don't have a wood fireplace, I have a gas fireplace. As long as the gas is working and I could use a match to ignite it, it would probably burn. But in any kind of a long-term disaster situation, that gas pipeline is going to be shut off as well. I'm not going to be able to use that fireplace. So it might look beautiful, but it's really quite useless to me. So you might need to come up with some kind of an alternate heat source. I have a kerosene heater that I use. It's quite stinky and it doesn't heat a very wide area, but if we needed to use it, we would use it. We would make sure to crack a window for sure, because it has a lot of fumes coming off of that. There's propane stoves. Coal stoves, which are the kind that you cook over, are not to be used inside your house. Do not use that kind of stove inside your house. The other idea is you can actually get a freestanding wood stove that you can chimney or vent out a window, and that's what I have. I have a freestanding wood stove and a little insert that I can put in a window so I can put a chimney out and it'll exhaust outside. It would heat a very large area, so we've talked about it. If anything like that happens, we'll all be sleeping together in a big happy slumber party, because that body heat and everything else will keep us warm, and we wouldn't be using our whole house. So that's another thing to think about. If you do have an emergency and you're trying to keep warm, close doors. Close off every room that could be taking the heat that you are trying to keep where you are. Think about, again, pioneers, little tiny cabins. How big were those one-room cabins? Honestly, they were probably the best thing for heat retention that they could have done, was to have a small little one-room cabin. We have these humongous houses that we heat. Well, if we have a little tiny kerosene heater heating it, it's not going to heat our whole house. So we would all snuggle up together, we would sleep together, we would work, we'd probably sleep and eat and cook in all the same area, because all that heat would be shared. If you're trying to keep cool, you're trying to actually do the opposite probably. Open up doors, open up windows, see if you can get some movement through. Go to your coldest area, which in our house is the basement. Water is a great way to cool things, so you can actually hang wet sheets from doorways, and if you have a moving airflow through that doorway, that is a natural air conditioner. So just keep wetting sheets, hang them from a doorway, and it'll naturally air condition the room you're in. All right, let's talk.
All right, so we'll pause there just for a minute. Any thoughts as you watched that, or other ideas that you had about heat, other heat sources that you've used or you've seen others use that might be beneficial? Okay. Let me I'll just kind of recap some of the things that she talked about here. And one thing that, so these are all, again, things that she mentioned: wood or gas fireplaces, kerosene heaters, propane stoves. You can use a Coleman stove, just generally not in your home. They're hand and feet warmers. These things that maybe you take to a ball game or something to stay warm. These can help a little bit. Obviously, they're not going to heat a big area. This is just your hands or your feet.
Are they just once? What can you use it for one time, or?
So the question was, can you use these just for once? Yes, these are just things that you open and kind of activate the stuff inside here, and then they're good for maybe a couple hours and then throw them away. So, good question.
There are reusable ones you can get. They're a little pricey.
So there are reusable ones? Okay, there you go. Okay.
Some keep in your preparedness storage area.
That's a good point. I didn't realize that. Thank you for sharing that. Something that our family's purchased a while ago, and I mentioned to some of you, I've never actually used this, but this is a propane heater. You just pop a couple of these in, and this one, it says you can use indoors, of course, or outdoors. But so we have a number of things that we can use for heat. Additionally, she mentioned here, if you have an open flame, of course, don't leave it unattended, and of course, when you're going to bed, turn it off. And then make sure, she mentioned, that there's proper airflow into the room, so there's not a carbon monoxide problem. And I thought this was good advice, that if you're, if it's overnight or a little longer term, and you need to be sleeping, it's a great idea to get into one or two rooms and get everyone in the same place, and then conserve the heat. And I thought that was smart. And then, of course, having matches and perhaps even an emergency fire starter kit might be helpful as well, if you have a place outside to start a fire. So I'm going to now continue on with the video. She's going to talk now a little bit about light, and then we'll come back and talk about a few things that we have here, and go from there. So.
Lights up. So there's a lot of different sources for light, so we're going to talk about a few of them. Candles are great, and candles are a great first place to go for, you can light it and you can leave it. Not unattended, obviously, but it'll burn for a while. Here's the interesting part though. To read, you need 2 candles going. For a typical medium-sized room, which is, this medium-sized room, not including that big piece over there, you're going to need 6 to 8 candles. That's a lot of candles, and that is going to feel a lot less light than what you're used to feeling. So, we're going to have to get used to having things in the dark. We're so used to all these bright lights everywhere, but 2 candles for reading, 6 to 8 candles to do much else. Candles, you really need to have a place that will catch the wax, otherwise again you can start fires or get burns. Candles are cheap. These I got at a thrift store. There's always things like this sitting around in thrift stores. Cheap and easy to store, so I suggest having some candles in storage. Kerosene or oil lamps. These are smelly and they're sooty. They work, and this is what pioneers depended on a lot, but this is an expendable resource. This lamp oil, once this is gone, this is gone. So I have some on hand, but it's certainly not going to be my primary source of light. Solar, this is a wonderful source because this is renewable. Just like this will run out, solar, as long as we can see the sun, it's renewable. So this is solar, this is solar. I have a lot of flashlights that have a solar component as well. You stick them out in the sun and it recharges it. They're not going to be as bright as what you're used to, but it's light. So I like having some solar components. And then just traditional flashlights, traditional lanterns. This one's a combo, but it can be a traditional lantern as well, battery powered. And I always recommend having some kind of a headlight, because when you're doing things without light, we have animals, and when we go out in the winter time and we're trying to work with them, we have to use headlights because we need our hands. We're milking, we're feeding, we can't hold a flashlight because we basically made it so we can't do the job that we need to do. So make sure you have a hands-free light source as well. This is a lighting kit that I made up as gifts for people, and I think it's great. It has a whole bunch of different lighting sources in it. This is something that you could easily keep in a kitchen cabinet somewhere that's easily accessible. So in here I have an emergency candle or survival candle. This is 36 hours this will burn. A regular flashlight, some matches. I wanted to talk about matches. It's important if you're storing matches to get strike anywhere matches. The reason that's important is because if I lose this box, or this box, you know how this wears out sometimes, you can still strike it on people do it on their zipper, on a brick, on something like that. So strike anywhere matches, that's what I have inside of this kit as well. I have a solar lantern. The reason people really like this solar lantern is it will also charge your electronics. So if the electricity's out, I can stick this out in the sun, I can plug my cell phone into it, and it will recharge it. So teenagers are all over that. This is a wind-up flashlight. So in a case of an emergency, if you are out of batteries, this one will continually work. So you wind it up and the light comes on. So that's a non-expendable resource right there, something that won't go away. And then chemical light sticks. One really good use for chemical light sticks is if you are in a closed space. Remember how we talked about you have to have a draft of some sort? If you have to be in a closed space, you can't open a window, you know it's airtight, and this is your go-to, because you can use that and it will not take oxygen to do. So the lighting kit has a variety of different things. It's nice, like I said, to keep it in a cupboard, so in case you have a power outage, you just need a little something. So that's light. Let's talk a little bit about fire starting to finish this up. This is an emergency fire starting kit, and I talked about this with our 72-hour kit video as well. This is just some basic things to start a fire. I love to have this on hand, again, just like in a kitchen cabinet. So if we need to start a fire, if we need to light that candle, if we need to do something, we have everything we need to do that. A couple basic tips on fire starting: keep it small and simple. Those big old bonfires that you see people having, that's not an emergency fire. Think of the Indian rule. Remember the Indian rule? You could never see a Native American rule. You could never see the smoke of their fire, because they would sit close to the fire and they would do everything they needed, and they would use very little wood, and it was simple to start. The big bonfires, you can't stand very close. It uses a lot of your expendable resources, which is your wood, so small and simple. Have a fire kit for starting at home. And unlike the Boy Scout days, you do not need a propellant. You do not need any kind of fire starter, lighter fluid, anything like that. You just need to be able to learn you just need to be able to know how to start a fire. So hopefully someone in your home does. I think it's a skill that if we ever have to do it, we'll be very good at learning, and we'll all have to learn and get better at it. So that's the details about fire, about light and heat. Again, like I said before, don't get overwhelmed. I just want you to pick one thing. You can say, okay, I need a few more candles. Let's get a few more candles. Or, hey, I think it would be really cool to have solar something. So just buy one solar thing. Just pick one or two ways to provide light to your family if you need it. And then I really do want you to think about an alternative heat source. What am I going to do if I need to keep my family warm? So those are the two things I want you to focus on for this month. And we'll be prepared for light and heat things. Thank you so much. We'll see you next month.
All right. So a little more detail there about light and an emergency, and so just to kind of quickly recap some things she talked about, and these are pretty common sense concepts, right? These are not necessarily groundbreaking ideas, but common sense is great. And so flashlights, lanterns, candles, kerosene or oil lamps. Remember batteries, of course, if you're using battery-powered items. And then some other things, solar powered lights with chargers for your electronics. You can also use the headlamps, the hand crank flashlights, glow sticks. And then she didn't talk about this one, but I thought it's one to think about, are generators. So a lot of campers and outdoors people have their generators that they take with them on their camps. And that's a great resource. And then there's the whole home generators that you can have. They kick on, when the power goes out. And those are typically powered by natural gas, so they work only if natural gas is there. But those can be pretty pricey. I think, just to buy the unit itself can be $4,000 or $5,000, and to get it installed, you're talking probably $8,000 or $9,000 total. So that's pretty pricey. But if you wanted to do all that, then you could have a whole home generator, which is another option, and that would provide you with a number of things. So some additional things. I like this idea of having a lighting kit. And as I was looking in our home to see what we have, I was surprised at how prepared we actually were. To be honest with you, we just didn't have it necessarily consolidated. So I went through and just found some things that we had in our house. Some of these are for heat. This we had a young man in our ward who was coming around for a project as a fundraiser that he was doing, and it's a little flashlight that is solar powered but has a USB port on the bottom here. So we're like, okay, we'll help him out and we'll help with preparedness, which was great. We've had these glow sticks for a long time, and so that's something we had in our home. This little flashlight here, it's a flashlight, but then if you open it up, let's see if I can. It becomes a little lantern, so you kind of hang it, and that's kind of fun. And so a lot of other things, these are good to have, these emergency blankets in case you're traveling. Something that we use for our home for a little fireplace that we have in our backyard are these little fire starters, which are great. And so, in any event, what I learned from this is this is good that we have this in our home. What we probably need to do is create another one of these or a couple of these for our vehicles. Not that we're going to necessarily be starting fires on the side of the road, but having something in the car, a heat source, a light source would be important if we were to get stranded for some reason. Let's see, so the rest of these she had talked about, and I have up here just some things that we have in our home. For example, for Christmas, one of my sons said, "What do you want for Christmas?" And I said, "Well, how about a headlamp? Because when I go hiking early in the morning, I don't have a headlamp, but now I can use this for emergency situations." Also, for Christmas, I think this one, that's a good question. This one I believe is only battery, so that's a little bit of a downside, not solar, but that's a good point. Solar would be better. We do have, this is something with my wife, I said, she said, "What can I get you for Christmas?" I said, "Well, how about a battery solar powered light?" So this is a bigger light. It has the USB ports on it. You can crank it or power it by solar, so that's a little bit better. This is a big light that we can use. And so, I guess the thought is here, you can kind of slowly gather up the things that you need, and you don't have to do everything all at once. We've accumulated these things over a period of a number of years. And so, just kind of to wrap up here a little bit, I wanted to talk about resources. So we talked earlier about this whyprepare.com website that our stake has, which is great. It has lots of videos. It has there's a YouTube channel. I showed you the Pleasant Grove Mount Mahogany Stakes website and YouTube channel. And of course you can just Google these and you'll be able to find them, but the addresses are there as well. One that you may not be familiar with out on YouTube is the church has a new website called How To, or a YouTube channel. And maybe I'll take just a quick second to show that to you because I think it has some great resources. So here on the YouTube channel you can find how to on a number of topics. And so there's recent content here, millennials and young adults. And when you scroll down a little bit further, you have emergency preparedness, food storage, healthy living. And so there are, in this particular one, there are 4 videos, 17 videos over here, and so on. So you just click on these, and they'll open up a number of videos. You pick the one you want. And these are not all church videos. They're third-party videos, church videos, a number of different ones that the church has put together for members of the church to use. And this how-to has all sorts of different topics, but definitely is one up here for preparedness. And then lastly, I just wanted to highlight that Department of Homeland Security has ready.gov, and this has a lot of really great topics on it as well. And so if you're interested in seeing what the federal government's put together, you can go out and check out that website, ready.gov. So just to wrap up, I like how Sister Jorgensen, in all of her videos, she kind of gives you 1 or 2 takeaways, because again, it can be really overwhelming to try and do everything all at once. And so this is what I think might be helpful, is to make a list of the resources, the light and heat resources you need for your particular circumstance, based on your family size, based on your home, based on your work situation, whatever it may be. What are the things that you think you would need for light and heat? And then go through and decide which ones do you have already. Do a quick inventory. Again, I was surprised that we had as many things as we did, because they were kind of scattered and in our home. And so now we know what we have. And then what do you need to complete your list? And there might be a number of things, but I would suggest just picking one thing that may have the biggest impact, and then work your list over time. And then also, one last thing would be, just consider making some form of a lighting kit for your home, or perhaps even your work or your vehicles. So any feedback on this, or questions, or other things that you've done that have been useful with light and heat that you'd like to share?
So I've had really good success with those inflatable solar lights. They're called Lucy's, L-U-C-Y. I think that was the original. There's probably multiple people making them now, but they work really quite well. They squish down into a little pancake, and then you pull them apart and they inflate, and then there's some solar panels on the top. They're really quite good. I've used them for multiple years up at Bear Lake. Renewable source of energy. They push out quite a bit of light. You can hang them in a tent. So those, even a room. So they're quite good too. We have those just on Amazon.
They're called Lucy's?
Yeah, Lucy's.
Okay.
Just if you search on Amazon for inflatable solar lights, they look like little, I don't know, they're 6-8 inches tall, and I think you can even buy the material in different colors if you want white or blue or red or something or other. But
that's great.
They're actually quite good.
So do you have to blow them to inflate them?
Yeah, you just blow them like in an inner tube. There's that little pop-up that you squeeze and blow into, and it inflates it. And then when you're done with it, you squeeze it and then squish it back and cap it. And then what we do during the day is just throw it up on the dashboard of our car and let it power up over the day, and you take them out at night.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So they're quite good.
So Lucy, L-U-C-Y-S.
I think that's a brand,
great.
and they're probably $15 or somewhere around there, and you can sometimes buy deals. You buy 6 for.
Why are they inflatable?
I think because they have some material on the inside that reflects the light. So when you pull it apart, I think there's some shiny material on the top and bottom, and it's an LED light, so you very low energy in it, and then that shiny material, reflective material on the inside and outside, just pushes out quite a bit of light. So they're
LED lights are really bright in a very small space. You look at them and they blind you, but you turn around and point it, and they don't put out a whole lot of light. So this, having it reflect off a whole sphere, it spreads the light out, makes it more
So that's very effective.
Yeah. And there may be a link on our White Prepare website. When I put this together today, this lecture, I'll put some links. I think I'll throw some links in there.
$17.95.
Yes, and they're really quite good.
Yeah.
That's great. I've never heard of that. Thanks for sharing. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
So I think having multiple options for light is important. I mean,
Yeah.
they all have their pluses and minuses. If the sun's not out, your Lucy's not charging, right? So you need to have some other source.
Right.
But you may only have to use that Lucy just for a couple hours at night until you're ready for bed anyway, depending on what time of the year it is. But that's a great option.
Right, and for camping though, it sounds like in a tent or something.
They're,
I mean, that's
they're
a great
wonderful.
option.
Yeah.
Cool.
They're quite good.
That's great. That's great. Any other ideas or things that people would like to share that they've done in the
We have
past?
the other ones that are solar and you just kind of like that, but they are bigger. Like you have your
Like
bigger,
this?
and we go like that, and we have,
Yeah, it's a combination lamp, lantern, and flashlight.
and I
Be
think they're
solar
solar.
powered,
Mhm.
has USB as well.
Yeah, great. So lots of options out there, it sounds
Yeah,
like,
and
too.
Goal Zero has a ton of products too. Is that a Goal Zero?
This one,
Yeah.
this is a Goal Zero.
Yeah, I
exactly,
noticed the
yep.
colors, but they have lots of products. You know, you can buy their portable solar units. They're spendy. They're $1,500 for their big puppy, the Yeti. But it'll charge a refrigerator and lights for many, many hours and things like that. So there's lots of options there.
Cool.
But Goal Zero is another good. And again, they talk about renewable source of energy, solar panels and solar power. But again, it's dependent on whether or not Mr. Sun is out.
Right.
So I think having other sources is great. And I think having a kit like she describes is wonderful. I know that we have one. I think there is a link on the White Repair website. I put one together. She may actually have some more things that she's put in hers. So, you know, certainly taking what I put on our website plus what she has described is a great option. You just put in a little clear Tupperware box like she has and you throw it up in your pantry.
Yeah.
And then you know it's always there. So it's a great option.
Very good, because you have some things and they are all scattered and you don't know where to find them, and we had some problem with our lights and we were here and there and we didn't have the stuff all together. He had a space in the basement, but I had the candles here at the end.
Right.
And then that we have other lights that are little squares like that, and they are in the string and they are solar, and they are supposed to be good for the tent. So we have quite a bit of a little bit of string, and then we put them there, and it is very good.
Good. I think you make a good point is taking what you have and finding a way to consolidate it down so you know where it all is. That's a great point. So.
But I like that one that is in the head.
Right, the headlamps.
Sometimes
Yeah.
you need your hands, and you are not used to not have your hands.
Right.
You use that. You will never get used to it.
Yeah.
So we do it with the light.
Oh, I saw something recently for guys, people who like to wear baseball caps, they have these little LED clips in them, you can put on a baseball cap.
You know, I saw those, so he mentioned baseball caps that you can put little LED lights on. I saw those at Walmart last night. They were $1. So really inexpensive. I wasn't quite sure what they were, but now I'm connecting what they were saying. So that's great. Yeah, lots of options. So
I mean, you can't beat having a good sleeping bag either, right? We talk about having all this fuel around and whatnot.
true. Yeah.
Fuel takes up space. It's not renewable. I mean, having a really good sleeping bag, you can't go wrong. It's not
Right.
good. You know, that's another option we don't really talk about, but
Yeah, we didn't talk about kind of all
Yeah.
the sleeping things, but
Right.
but yeah, that's a good point. So
Yeah, to have an extra too, like we went to camping, we go every year for preparedness, and then it was freezing, and we didn't expect that because it
Right.
was already in June, I don't remember. But he had brought an extra sleeping bag, and with that, we did it because it was thicker, and we survived.
yeah, if you're in your even if you're in your home, that was camping. Right? If you're in your home and there's no power, it's winter, you're going to want sleeping bags or extra blankets for sure that you can layer onto your existing bedding. So good points.
Can you use the Lucy's indoor?
yes, they do not produce any byproduct of any sort. Yeah, they're wonderful. I have multiple of them.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, we've gone through questions, but just again want to tell you thanks for coming today. And again, I said before, I'm not an expert at all, but I think through our conversation today, we found a new great resource that none of us except Chad had heard about before, it sounds like. And hopefully these videos and the other ones that we have on our state website will be helpful as you consider your family's light and heat needs. So thank you so much for coming, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you so much.
That was good.